Good morning, Matt Waldman. It's me, Bob Harris, here knocking on your door, darkening your doorstep once again on a Monday to feel it or fuck it. What do you say, Matt?
Film, and more film. Running back. It's
say.
running backs all day, all night, all the time, even in my dreams right now.
This is my point. See, I was right. Last week he suggested, when I'm done watching film. That doesn't happen. There is no done watching film. He might stop briefly watching film just to rest his weary eyes, but there is no being done watching film this time of year. Tell him why, Matt.
Yeah, because you can get the rookie scouting portfolio available by pre-order for $21.95 at mattwaldman.com. It's in its 20th year of publication this year. 20 years, folks. Yeah, you can see it on my face. You're going to get 150 evaluations of prospects. Really, you're going to get a lot more than that. I'm going to evaluate 150 prospects, a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. It is a fantasy favorite. It is also a football favorite. I'll say this. I had someone who wrote me once. I'll just give this a little story I haven't shared before. At the end of the 2019 season, and said, I've been meaning to thank you. I got a job with LSU, and a big part of that was as an operations manager doing work with the team, in large part to your YouTube videos where you studied prospects. I didn't play football, but the LSU staff was very impressed with the work that I did, and LSU won a national championship with the likes of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and the like, or they were definitely coming off the heels of that. And he said, I'm at the combine right now. And he said, I was reminded to thank you because I overheard two scouts talking about you and your work. And one of them said, if I ever meet Matt Waldman, I'm giving him a big hug. And I said, do you mind telling me who the team was? He said, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I can only think of one player I scouted in the Kansas City Chiefs that was a little different than other people. But just saying, you're going to get something that's steeped in football, but also from a fantasy writer. So you get the pre-draft and post-draft publications. You're getting probably near 2,000 pages worth of work every year to access. It has multiple years of value for you. You can bop around on it with bookmarks and be able to access things easily. So you get both. And I'm creating data. People talk about me as a film guy, but I'm really, and as Dwayne McFarland said very early on when he started working with me, he goes, what people don't realize is you're an analytics person who does film. And that's pretty much what happens here because I create my own data, and I've been creating my own data, which is why the views sometimes differ from a lot of what people put out there, but it's steeped in film practices. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that regard. And 20 years into it, and you can get it at mattwaldman.com. And before this episode is over, we'll have a contest announced. Thanks to Devin Knotts, who decided that he was going to buy some RSPs to give away to people. We gave away 2 a few weeks ago. We're going to give away 2 more this week, and we'll do this as the moment inspires, because I haven't thought about the contest yet, but maybe me and Bob will come up with one while we're doing it.
Maybe. Let me tell you this, dear listener and viewer, who have come to know me over the course of time, me, Bob Harris. I have a story too. I have a story that probably is not related to me being an NFL personnel person or associated with the team. It has to do with me being a fantasy football analyst. My job doesn't allow me to watch the college football. I'm busy during that time of year doing the pro football. And I'm not up to speed, right? And readily acknowledge, this is not my niche. I'm not a rookie. I'm not a draft pick. I'm not out there doing that. But I need to know about these guys. And so every year I buy a rookie scouting portfolio by the great Matt Waldman. And I quickly get up to speed. And if I don't get what I don't get up to speed on, I have as a reference, so I can dive in when I hear about a player at a mini camp who's making waves or catching somebody's attention or doing something unexpected. I can go and look and see, maybe they should have expected this, or, wow, that truly is a surprise. So highly recommend for anyone out there, whether you're totally immersed in the topic or you're just trying to keep up with everybody else and trying to gain a little edge on the competition in your dynasty league, or when you're playing fantasy, or you just love football and you want to know everything about the players. This is a great product, and I couldn't recommend it more. Me, Bob Harris. So there we have it. Also, you were talking about like a cheese rig. I keep going back to the 2017 Super Bowl. Mike Dempsey and I, my serious co-host, we're at the Radio Row in Houston, and we're given a list of people we can interview, and this kid Patrick Mahomes is on the list, and let's go get this guy. He's going to be really good. And our station manager telling him, no, nobody knows who he is. Nobody cares. if you don't think Mike Dempsey to this day drops that story like at the least provocation, I can tell you do not know Mike Dempsey well. Maybe you don't, but if you don't, you should. You should listen to Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, the Football Diehards. But
absolutely.
While we're on the topic of the Chiefs, Matt, let's start there with the feeler bucket portion of this affair. Kansas City's success aided, maybe even fueled, maybe even due to the NFL script writers. Go.
Well, certainly that's a possibility. Everything seems to be into play this day and age with just about anything, any possibility, any conspiracy, anything that may look off a little bit off kilter to people. Certainly the spot of the ball was a mistake. So, right. We can look at it that way and say that the outcome might have been different. I can think of lots of games where things happened where the outcome might have been different. It's just unfortunate that this was one of the biggest games, if not the biggest game of the year at this point, for this to be the case. And then you also have the fuel that's been poured all over the NFL about, in social media about that the refs favor the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And so just like the refs favored Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, and the refs favored Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, and the refs favor whoever's the leading potential to be a dynasty with a star player who's maybe the biggest star in the league. These types of stories always happen. And a lot of it is psychological when we look at the advantage and see the winning record and equate it to that. So it's unfortunate for the Bills. I understand their pain and their angst over it. But let's also understand that Patrick Mahomes was running around during his first few years basically playing circus football. And then the league said, fuck you. You're not doing that anymore. We're going to put too high over everything and eliminate the deep game for everybody. You've ruined it for everybody. So we're going to take it away from everybody. Yeah.
Everybody except running back.
Yeah. Right? So we're going to, exactly. Revenge is mine, but like, no, the says Saquon Barkley. But the thing is they did that. And then they said, okay, Mahomes, can you play perfect football? Can you play low mistake football and manage the game on a completely different level? Because we think, based on so many pre-draft scouting reports, that you were like this reckless guy who was just going to be way too daring and throw as many intercepts. You were going to be Jameis Winston Jr., basically with more mobility and maybe more trick shots to your game. And it turned out that now he's Tom Bradying it in a lot of ways, in the way that he's playing this game. And Shelkapedia had a really nice note on Twitter that a friend of mine, my buddy Josh, was sending me last night, that his snap, I don't know, his snap success rate or whatever they call it, was in the 99th percentile, and I think there were only 4 quarterbacks who've done that, I think it was all year. I don't want to say it was ever, but it was a very low number, and Patrick Mahomes did it in the most important game of the year thus far.
Yeah, I felt like going into this game, and I know somewhere out there, my other series colleague, Jeff Mans, is going to hear this because he feels it when I talk about Patrick Mahomes in ways that he doesn't care for. That Patrick Mahomes is not a great fantasy quarterback, because he's not. But you can be two things at once. You can be not the greatest fantasy quarterback in the world and also the best quarterback in the NFL. And on any given Sunday, Patrick Mahomes can be better than your quarterback, or good enough when paired up with a fantastic defense playing on point that apparently did a little study. So I don't know if the script writers were in on the Bills play sheet, but Tony Romo knew that Josh Allen was going to step back and run to his left 3 times in a row. So did the Chiefs, apparently, right? Like, I don't know.
That's Ricky Bobby's move right there. I mean, if he could spin it around and run in backwards, he would.
Like, and I don't want to take, because I think the Bills are a good football team, but when you watch those teams play on the field, there was one team that was doing a much better job on defense, seemed to be better prepared. Coaching is a thing. I know there's been a lot of discussion in my world about Sean McDermott. I don't know that he merits an immediate axing, but at some point you have to acknowledge that like you're getting outboxed, and they were outboxed and outplayed in this particular game. Yet they were still in it at the very end and had an opportunity to win. I think it was a fantastic game. And fuck all that script writer stuff. If you ever watch football, you know the outcome is far from guaranteed any given Sunday. And if you think somebody could sit there and plan that out like they plan out a wrestling match, sir, I have a bridge. Please contact me. I would like to speak with you. It's for sale.
Love it. Love it.
All right. Philadelphia Eagles. Feel it or fuck this. Philadelphia Eagles, top to bottom, have the best roster in the NFL.
Feel it. No doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, they're what they have along the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. They got the big boys. They got the athletic, who all of them are great athletes up front. Very few weaknesses along those two lines. They've got depth. Then you've got A.J. Brown, who's like reading books on the sideline. Who they've just decided to let him chill a little bit while they were just winning games against easier opponents, and they decide, let's take the chances. At least if Saquon doesn't get hurt trying to get 2,000 yards, 21.05, for his offensive line, and we decide not to shut that down and let it go, we could give AJ a rest. And if Saquon gets hurt doing that, then at least we still have got a weapon in AJ Brown who can take over a game. And I think that, you look at that, you look at the young secondary, of course, Jalen Hurts, very talented football player. And you've really, they can beat you in a number of ways. They just have to wake up a little earlier sometimes when it comes to getting on the field. They can be slow starters.
Right. I totally agree. Feel this. And part of this, and maybe a little bit of it was on display yesterday as the offensive line had injury issues. And I don't know, I didn't see them missing many beats there. And so, they were swapping in and out, guys playing at less than 100% at various times throughout the game. And Cam Jurgens finished that game despite a back injury that was bad enough for him not to start. Yet the left guard, or the guard who started in his place, hurt his knee, and they're shifting guys around, and I saw holes. So very good roster, but also some of the things like when we talk about like the passing attack over the course of this season has not been great, right? Well, of course it's not been great. Saquon Barkley has 350 plus carries, right? So when you see that Jalen Hurts has 100 fewer completions, it's not that Jalen Hurts is 100 completions worse. It's that the offense has shifted to take advantage of a new piece. And some of those 100 receptions that we've seen in previous years have gone to players who had greater seasons. Those seasons too are diminished. We look at everything in a black and white, like, oh, he's not as good anymore. No. Back in my day as a graphic designer 1,000 years ago, there's 256 shades of gray. You should pay attention to those nuances between the black and the white, people. There's a lot going on here. But the one thing, the black and white portion of this, the black portion of this, compared to the white of, wow, they're not doing very good, is, yes, this is a super good roster, and they're going to challenge the Chiefs immensely. And some, again, this may come down to coaching. And if it does, I know where my money's going on.
And by the way, fuck the idea that they need to fire Sean McDermott in Buffalo. I mean, seriously, you've got Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Oh, and if you want to be part of that crew that plays up Justin Herbert in that same sphere,
sure,
which I guess is a legitimate argument too, you got that happening as well. And really, Patrick Mahomes has the best team, and they've ruled over that. And this is going to be that. Era. I think we all see it, where it's very possible that Joe Burrow was the one that squeaked in to get a Super Bowl one year, and we might not see it in the next 5 years. We might see the Chiefs appear another 1 to 2 times. I'm going to say that conservatively. And so, as a result of that, are you really going to blame I think with football, you've got to give the coach credit for getting there.
Correct.
And getting there as often as that they have. And to say, oh, well, they just can't beat that, and this is what the best coaches do, that's fine. So go ahead and fire one of the best coaches because he was not the best coach. That's a real smart idea.
So we are speaking as not fans of the team, though. Like, invested fans in there with all the emotion. I understand the disappointment and the frustration, but you should always be considering what the alternatives are as you work through your emotions after a bitter loss.
Listen. Fuck all of that. Okay, to the Buffalo Bills fans. I grew up in Cleveland. Okay, we fucking lost to John Elway 3 times in crazy fashion in 3 years. One time we had no business even getting to Denver, But 2 of those years we had Marty Schottenheimer. And Marty Schottenheimer went on to still be an excellent coach. There was no reason they should have fired Marty Schottenheimer other than the psychobabble of, well, he could only get them so far, and maybe he's lost the team. He didn't lose the team. He did not lose the team. That was just listen. You get that team that close. Let him continue building. Let him be the guy until it's time. Very clearly by wins or losses or by his own estimation that it's time to leave. And so to me, Bills, don't do that. Don't destroy your team because you get this close and I know you're probably frustrated because of the other Super Bowls you lost. At least you got there. But I would just say, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I'd say Sean McDermott's a good baby to have.
Wow. Feel it or fuck it, Matt. The Washington Commanders are a playoff team again next year.
I'm gonna say feel it, but I'm gonna say that it's more likely they're a wild card team than a division winner, because I still want to see Kliff Kingsbury's offense make adjustments to the adjustments that are going to be made to them, and historically that has not happened. And we see, Jayden Daniels has played well. I had a more sober idea of what he would do year one. I think most people did until the summer excitement came, unless their name was Bob Harris. Bob Harris was very excited, to his credit, about what Jayden Daniels could offer as a runner and a passer, and he's done that. But as a passer, I would say I'm still waiting to see a little bit more from him in terms of less schemed work. And I see he's shown moments of that I'm enthused about. But I want to see what happens when teams start to kind of spend a summer looking at the scheme and picking it apart. So I think that they'll be close to the playoffs next year. I'll put them in favor of saying yes. But I'm kind of also feeling the idea that we could see an injury or two, and we could see a C.J. Stroud fall from grace for a year, where then everyone's getting whiplash about how they feel about him, which they shouldn't. He's a good young prospect.
I totally agree with that, and I'm going to continue overstating my stance on Jayden Daniels. I liked Jayden Daniels a lot. I wasn't drafting him overdrafting him. I wasn't being overly aggressive on him. I thought I was getting him at a good value where I got him. But that athleticism, that's what we're looking for in fantasy. It's not always what you're looking for in the NFL. And I would say when you're 210 pounds, probably you should be a little more cautious with your how you take contact. And it seemed like he gained that. You talked about Kliff Kingsbury, next gen stats number from yesterday's game. Terry McLaurin lined up against Quinyon Mitchell on 36 of his 48 routes. That's 75% of the time, aligning in press coverage. Mitchell allowed just 1 reception for 7 yards on 4 targets against McLaurin. Why would you not move him around, Kliff Kingsbury? A little bit. But that's been the knock on Kliff Kingsbury since when? Since the day he walked into the NFL, after his first season, which, oh, wow, look at all these cool stuff. And then it was the same. We realized it was the same cool things over and over. And you don't see the levels of motion or play action or some of the things you want to see that make for the most successful offenses. So I'm with you. I need to see progression here. I need to see a little bit of willingness to accept that you can't stay the same. Maybe Dan Quinn has demonstrated with his willingness to who's the most aggressive coach in the NFL these days? I mean, you could argue it's Dan Quinn, and maybe some of that is the confidence of having Jayden Daniels as your quarterback, but also some of it is clearly he has embraced the analytics and then some. Like, there's a guy in his ear saying, yeah, And he's going, okay. And then he's going right with it. So maybe some of these things, some of the people who study the analytics of the game will be in his ear telling him the same things Next Gen Stats just told me.
Well,
and maybe we'll see adjustments.
Yeah. And if Kliff gets fired, he'll eventually be president of the United States because, he's basically failed upward in every position that he's been in, I would say.
The Saints have not yet hired their coach. We'll leave it at that and move on. What do the Buffalo Bills need to do, not coaching-wise, personnel-wise, to maximize Josh Allen? What's lacking?
I hate to say this, but have Patrick Mahomes as their backup on the bench. That's basically that's it. I hate to say it, but that's really. You look at this team. Sure, certainly you can make tweaks. You could say, oh, they need a go-to receiver, but they had a go-to receiver. And they got rid of him and Stephon Diggs. Now, a lot of people say, well, he's gotten old. But they wanted to spread the ball around a little bit more. They didn't want Josh Allen relying solely on one guy and get him a little bit more used to making the offense a little less predictable. But they don't. I think maybe they need to get, Josh Allen needs to, he needs to connect with Dalton Kincaid on throws where Dalton Kincaid could go up and win it, and I know that's a sore point for a lot of Buffalo fans right now with that final play where it bounced off his forearm, but it was a little more of a difficult play. Tony Romo, he can listen. Tony Romo, fuck that for putting that on Kincaid a little bit. That was kind of a difficult situation. You'd love to see him make the play, but it was a tough play. And Romo's kind of Josh Allen without the arm. And the athletic ability, or the size. He had the athletic ability, he didn't have the size, but he was basically the Josh Allen of that time, with more turnovers. Maybe the early iteration of Josh Allen. Maybe that's what he was. But seriously, I think getting Keon Coleman up to speed, he's a ball winner. Let Josh Allen show some confidence being able to do that with him and Dalton Kincaid. I think you can get more out of those guys. I think you can get more out of Khalil Shakir, and maybe part of that is expanding how you use those players so it's not just dink and dunk ball, and where it's a little bit more daring, and let him be a little bit more daring. Certainly you can shore up the offense, continue to build along the offensive line. You can certainly get more out of your defense in certain phases and continue to tweak that. But I think this team, if we were not in the Patrick Mahomes era of football right now, Allen would have been to a couple of Super Bowls by now, and I don't think we'd be having this question. So it's just, it's not anything major, and it's come down to like a drive pretty much each of those times. So I don't want to overanalyze the Bills.
Yeah, they had some injuries on defense. Matt Milano, a number of guys missing time over the course of the season. That can't help. Matt Patante, our colleague of football guys, ranks this offensive line as number 5. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You look at the receiving core, and yes, like Stephon Diggs was not there, but Khalil Shakir was a solid, consistent threat. Maybe Dalton Kincaid, a disappointment, just has never kind of emerged, but maybe that's as much due to our expectations as it is his ability to deliver on them.
I think it's usage. Yeah, I don't think the usage is. He is a go up and get it player along the lines of what sometimes we see with Brock Bowers, and he's a player that you want to hit up the seams more. You want to attack safeties more and let him win the ball over these guys. And Allen doesn't make those plays to him, but he trusts Keon up the boundary to do that kind of work.
Oh, my Dynasty share.
He's trusting Keon to do that. So if Keon can become a little bit more in this offense, and then maybe they can get Dalton Kincaid to target him in ways that they're best using him, this offense could be formidable.
Yeah, maybe better integrate. We'll see if Amari Cooper sticks around, better integrating him. That guy's known as a very good receiver. Maybe those days are over of him being that 100 catch a year guy are over, but certainly a bigger contribution than we saw in this one.
They definitely put the governor on him in this offensive scheme.
Yeah, but I feel the Bills being competitive. I'm with you. I don't think there need to be major changes done. Major issues for some fantasy outcomes this year. Let's look and revisit some of them and see if we how we feel about them. Christian McCaffrey, feel it or fuck it, rebound season ahead.
I'm going to say fuck it. And it pains me to say that because he's such a great player and he's worked so hard, but he's going to turn 29. And it's not because I believe that as a 29-year-old that he can't play. Adam Harstead has talked a lot about this type of thing. But it's the fact that the cliff comes pretty fast. When you have an Achilles injury, that's been nagging. That can be difficult. And also teams like, the NFL likes to get rid of players a year before they all fall apart. They like to be in on that idea of like, oh, we don't want to keep this guy too long and then lean on him and then it ruins the season. And I think he's near that point where the 49ers might be going, maybe we use him a little more sparingly. Maybe we acquire yet another running back that's a rich running back class, and maybe we find someone who can be an heir apparent if we're not sure Isaac Guerendo is going to get better or if we feel that Jordan Mason is just a really good backup committee guy.
Also, he's a free agent. Somebody's going to spend some money on him. And
I hope they do.
Now that we live in a universe where the Eagles have given everybody permission to invest in running backs again, we're going to go through.
Thank you, Philadelphia.
A mini golden era of running backs getting paid again. I think just based on that success. But I think everyone should remember what Howie Roseman said. When they paid Saquon Barkley that money, it's because we expect him to touch the ball 300 plus times this season and carry our offense, right? So, I mean, think about your plans. I'm with you on McCaffrey, but that doesn't mean he won't have value. And I think that's one of the things we'll be assessing over time. I know Dave Kluge in his way too early draft rankings has him going somewhere in the second round. I think people will take him there. I think I won't be those people. But if he gets into the third round, taking a chance on the upside that he turns back into him, I think I can mitigate that risk sufficiently in the third round, maybe not so much in the second, but that may depend on what we're hearing over the course of the offseason. So I'm with you. Fuck it. I don't think he's ever going to be that same guy that we've seen. It's like a dragster, only goes up and down the strip so many times until things start falling apart. And we may be to
blow a head gasket. Yeah.
Right. We may be to that point with him. Are we to that point with Tyreek Hill? 959-yard season, didn't hit the 1,000-yard mark, yanked himself early out of last game, super frustrated. Wanted to be traded. All the frustration is apparently gone. He's okay with everything, and he's going to stick around. Feel it or fuck it. Rebound season for Tyreek Hill.
I'm going to say feel it, though I feel like I'm going against my gut feeling on this one. Only because without the way NFL defenses are playing the deep passing game, it just takes away that biggest fear element of Hill on a certain dimension. So I think that the margin for error to say that Tyreek Hill can hit 1,000 to 1,100 yards is pretty tight, considering that maybe the ceiling of 1,300 to 1,500 yards is no longer there. And I think that that's part of the problem here is that you're probably playing very tight to the margins to take a chance on Tyreek Hill if you're going to take him early.
Let me pull up the centerfold on my next-gen stats page here and look at the fastest ball carriers of the season. And I'm looking at the top 20. I see Derrick Henry in there a couple times. I see Jonathan Taylor in there multiple times. I see Jahmyr Gibbs. I see Cavante Turpin. I see Nico Collins. I see many Saquon Barkleys, Brian Thomas Jr. I don't see Tyreek Hill in there for the first time in many years. It's possible he's slowing down a little, or possible he didn't get the opportunities to make the big plays. I'll grant you that, but plus 30, over 30 years old.
It raises questions.
It raises questions why he is not on my centerfold, because I love looking at that. I'm always there. But beyond that, look, I'm hoping he falls further. I've seen some mock drafts, some way too early mock drafts where he's third round, maybe, there's going to come a point where people are going to be drafting him. I will be one of those people at the right point. Is third round a little rich? Maybe depends on how I'm building my team. If I'm going receiver heavy, 0 running back, and he's my third receiver, that might be a good place to do it. I can mitigate that risk that he's going to have a flop. Unlike, mitigating it if I'm taking him in the first or second, or is a guy that I need to deliver every single week. So, but Tua Tagovailoa was not on the field the entire season. That's going to be apparently a risk going forward too, to the degree it has been in the past. I mean, it's reasonable to be concerned about it, but obviously he wants to play, and maybe they'll do a better job of finding a backup. Huntley did better, after he was given some time to acclimate in the offense, but maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe McDaniels needs to do a better job of refreshing his offense. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe teams figured things out a little bit. Whatever the case, I think it's probably a combination of all those things. There will be a price where I will be willing to invest in Tyreek Hill, even though he's fallen off my centerfold and out of my prime attention range. But no, I think I'm not fucking him. A rebound, I think it's not wide receiver one fantasy wise rebound is unlikely, but having some value is very likely.
Sure, I love it.
All right, rebound season for Anthony Richardson. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm feeling it, but maybe the question should be rebound season for Anthony Richardson's wide receivers. I would say that's going to be just as important as Anthony Richardson playing a little smarter football in certain ways, as well as just getting help around him. And I think the help around him is going to be coming. So I'm optimistic about it. How about you?
Yeah, I am. Oh my, I'm invested on this, right? So I don't want to,
we both are.
Myself.
Yeah.
I should disqualify myself from the rational portion of this conversation for a brief moment, and just say the things that I expected to be, I still saw signs of in two games this year, right? So, am I eager to pay a super great discount? Yes, yes. But he's going everyone's going to bail on him, right? And I mean that's the part of fantasy football that's great. I know that there are people out there who say, I will never draft this guy again. I'm not that guy. I will draft everybody at the right price. I don't care what you've done to me, how bad you've hurt me, what kind of damage you've done to me in past seasons. If the price is right, if you're of super value, and I still see the potential for that upside, and clearly the team is still invested enough in him to keep a coach who is and the GM responsible for bringing him in, and the coach hired to develop him for another year, there's still a chance, and I'm willing to take that chance, and we will get a huge discount on it. So rebounds possible, maybe not likely. I will not be drafting quarterbacks the same as I have because of him, right? And I think this whole year, Matt, the drafting that high upside but risky quarterback, and we acknowledge that all along that there's huge risk with Anthony Richardson, but the range of guys who seem like steady, reliable options if your upside guy falls short, they weren't as high this year. They weren't as bad. Maybe that shifts next year too. Maybe you can get more out of that second tier of quarterbacks. We didn't get that. We'll move on to that second tier of quarterbacks.
Is he in the second tier?
Well, he was when we were drafting. Kirk Cousins, rebound, feel it or fuck it.
I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this as an RSP contest. Okay. How about the are you game for fielding emails, Bob?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Because if not, I'll do it. But I thought it'd be fun to say the two best nicknames for Kirk Cousins that our fan base can come up with. And you can judge the two best ones. You can email them to Bob. Where do you want them to email you?
Harris at Football Guys.
Harris at Football Guys. Simple enough. Email your best nickname for Kirk Cousins, and if we like it, if Bob likes it and picks the two best ones, we'll mention them on the air next week, and you'll win yourself an RSP pre-draft post-draft guide at $21.95. Value, quote unquote, and you'll just supply you'll just make sure you supply the email that you want and your full name so that I can sign you up and you'll get an email on April 1st when it's ready. So
all right,
do it. Yeah. So rebound season for Kirk Cousins. I think it's possible, but fuck that. Mainly because that 36 years old, going on 37, bad Achilles, did not look great. Maybe he'll get a little bit back, but I don't know how much back he's going to get, and a lot of that's not so much the movement, his ability to move in the pocket, but to drive the football. And I think that with what Atlanta had on offense, they should have won this division handily. And the fact that it was such a struggle with Cousins, it's because he played well in a limited offense, at least well enough for a while, and then it just all fell apart. And I just don't think he's going to be able to overcome, what happened to him, because he's a different athlete than, say, even Aaron Rodgers. Like, I wouldn't even put those guys in the same tier in terms of what goes on there. So it's possible, but I'm not counting on it.
Right. I totally landing spot dependent for me. Right. Like, I'm gonna reserve judgment here, and probably will fall onto the side of being overly optimistic if he lands in an opportune circumstance, or one that I view as a good landing spot. And I hope I don't get overcome with this and overdraft him as a result. Chuba Hubbard, 1 year wonder, feel it or fuck it.
Oh, fuck that. The guy's good. He's gotten better every year. I think that the way Bryce Young has played in the second half of the season, there's going to be more balance to this offense. That's going to make things easier for Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks, unfortunately, talk about a player whose stock has gone down precipitously, and deservedly so due to injuries. It's sad. And maybe they'll draft another good running back who can supplement Hubbard in the backfield, but Hubbard's going to be the main guy going forward unless there's injury, and he can pretty much do it all at this stage of his game. So I think, he got that contract, and now we see it's well deserved. It was a little fortuitous that he got that contract before the injury to Brooks, but
that tells you something, though, right?
Yeah.
That they were paying in advance. It tells you two things: they knew more about Brooks than we did, or at least what they think of him, and also what Chuba Hubbard's got done. Having talked to many reporters who cover that team on a daily basis, I want to say Mike Kay from the Charlotte Observer had he was pretty adamant that the coaching staff loves the violent running style that Chuba Hubbard has, and think it's a great fit for the offense they want to run. And remember, the running game is super important to what Dave Canales does to get the quarterbacks turned around. It was the case in Tampa Bay. They didn't run the ball well, but they ran the ball a ton under Canales. So with Rachaad White getting 270 plus carries, same number of carries as Christian McCaffrey in 2023, even though it was a lousy average, they kept whacking away at it. They're getting a little something more out of Chuba Hubbard and running him the same amount. And I don't expect to see Jonathan Brooks back. He is not going to be a 1 year wonder, at least. But also, he is not going to be a great value next year. You're going to be paying a premium to land him.
There'll be a 5th or 6th round pick in this draft who will be a good player that you're going to want to attach to Chuba Hubbard later in drafts next year.
All right, so we've decided that. Bucky Irving moves into running back 1 territory. Feel it or fuck it.
It's possible. It's very possible, I would say that. But if Chris Godwin goes elsewhere, this team is not going to have as many viable receiving threats unless they get someone who's a competent equivalent, not an equivalent, a competent player replacing Godwin, because there's no equivalent. Godwin's great. But if they get a competent player to replace him, maybe that'll help the run game. But Bucky Irving, I would say, is that guy that people are going to get way too excited about because he's a flashy mover and he's a good player. But there were a lot of plays I saw this year where it was dictated by, defensive scheme. And if you had put Rachaad White in those situations, you wouldn't have seen much of a difference in terms of the output. Maybe not the way it was done, but the final result. And I think Irving's kind of a little smoke and mirrors in a fun way. He's a good young player, but RB1 territory, I don't think we're looking at Devon Achane of the NFC. Let's just put it that way.
I think that's fair. I tend to agree with that. I think he will be drafted close to running back 1 territory.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you're not going to get a great value on him, but I don't know that he'll not return that value that you get him, depending on where it is. Maybe 2nd round, maybe 3rd round of drafts.
Running back, if someone said he's going to be a top 20 back, I'd say absolutely. Yeah.
So he finishes that this year. He was like running back 14 or 15.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a build, though. I mean, he didn't start out I mean, he was way stronger down the stretch. Somebody out there arguing that, hey, based on how he finished the season, extrapolating that into a full season as the lead back or playing that same role that he did over the back half of the season, I think that's a fair argument. I don't know if I'm going to make it to myself or that's the story I'm going to tell myself when I'm drafting. I'm going to hope to get him cheaper, but I could see people telling themselves that story and maybe not being wrong.
Agree.
All right. Chase Brown, feel it or fuck it, continues to deliver running back 1 production for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Running back 1 fantasy. Yeah.
Finished inside the top 12.
Yeah, he did. I'm going to say fuck it.
You are a hater.
I am. I like Chase Brown. I think he'll be closer to the top 15 in that Bucky Irving territory, 15 to 20. And only because I think that they're going to find another running back to pair with him, even though Brown may be the lead guy. And also, I think this passing game is going to be a little healthier next season. Whether they keep Higgins, whether they get someone else, they stop experimenting with, with Jermaine Burton because they realize that experiment's over. And I think that their receivers will be 1 year better. I think this is going to be a potent passing attack once again. It was this year. And I think that Brown will be helpful, but I don't think he's going to get the level of touches required to crack that top 10, top 12.
His ascendance came once Zach Moss was injured. They were sharing a little bit. He was coming on, though. I'm not going to, I don't want to
he's good.
The case. Right. He was the guy when they let Joe Mixon go. If you listen to people who cover that team on a daily basis back when Mixon moved on to was sent off to the Houston Texans and that Brown was the reason why they were comfortable. They wanted a more explosive presence at the position. They certainly have that. I could bring my centerfold up again, but I won't. And to tell you that Chase Brown has a lot of speed and on a lot of bursts, but
if Zach you Moss, anchor him with Zach Moss, then you get Joe Mixon again because
Correct.
You have to if you combine them.
Correct. So that's going to be the issue, and that's why people may well overdraft him is looking what happened down the stretch and not realizing what the bigger picture is. Ben Johnson. Matt was hired by the Chicago Football Bears to remain in the NFC North. Took shots at Matt LaFleur. You got to love that if you're a Bears fan, right? Coming right out of the chute and going, I beat his ass a couple times last year. Feel it or fuck it. Ben Johnson is the innovative offensive mind to take Caleb Williams to the next level.
It'd be kind of like hiring Albert Einstein to be your high school physics teacher. All you needed was a competent physics teacher if you didn't have one in the first place. So, yeah, fuck yes, it's going to be he's an innovative, but they didn't need that. I mean, hell, Thomas, I'm trying to remember.
Brown.
Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown just, got rid of the incompetence of the Bears offense, and Caleb Williams went from, low-end QB, 2 or high-end QB 3 to a high-end QB 1 in the span of weeks. And that wasn't even, you could argue that wasn't even a good offense. So, yes, fuck yes, Caleb Williams is going to be the most productive second-year quarterback in fantasy football for among the guys from the 2024 class. And I think that it's going to be, it's going to be glorious.
I will shift, and I agree with you. I totally feel that. I will assume my Buccaneers fans persona here. That sneaky bastard, and then go to my Jaguars persona. The great Liam Coen is capable of getting Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars offense back on track.
Yes, absolutely. Fuck yes, because one, they got rid of Trent Baalke so that they could get Liam Coen. Because the Jaguars finally realized that nobody wanted to work with Trent Baalke. But so that means that Liam Cohen's got some political clout. He's going to get his way first year. I think that when it's healthy, there's enough weaponry in the skill positions for Trevor Lawrence to be strong. And he's not a bad quarterback. He's capable of being a very good quarterback. So I think you'll see strides for them to be able to do so. That offensive line's got to get better, though.
So I think they've got the pieces at tackle that they want. I think the middle of the offensive line is where they need to upgrade. We saw Dave Canales do that in Carolina last year. That was a priority for him. I suspect it will be a priority here. I'm kind of with you. I mean, I think, the Trent Baalke portion of this affair. John Shipley on SI.com had a great article about this. Why, look, Trent Baalke isn't necessarily a horrible GM, but he's viewed as a horrible underminer and as a guy who sticks around when other people leave. The perception is he's the one stabbing people in the back and has the owner's ear. So that isn't a favorable, look for.
Yeah. He's a heel.
Coaches.
Yeah.
Right. He's a heel, whether he is or not. Right. Like we don't really know this for sure, but that's the perception, and the perception's what matters.
And there's a lot of times there's guys who are perceived as good guys in this league. There's somebody I mentioned earlier in this podcast who was considered one of the good guys in the league, but from what I hear from sources, he constantly was a constant backbiter and backdoor, bad mouthing his boss to an owner,
right?
And got his job that way. And the person that he worked for was a very good coach. So and most people don't know that about this guy. I can't mention it because it was in confidence, but yeah, I mean that's very likely that maybe we got it wrong about Trent Baalke. Now at the same time, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire too. So we'll just say he's gone, and we're going to get a clean slate to find out.
Right. The perception, it doesn't matter what the truth is. The perception was, and it was keeping coaches from wanting to work there, and that was a problem, right? So, I mean, Trent Baalke also drafted Brian Thomas Jr., turned out to be a pretty good player, and others, right? And he's had misses. I think like every GM, you have hits and misses. Anyway, Baker Mayfield, is he about to make another offensive coordinator a lot of money?
I think there's a good chance that it could happen. He's kind of that player that I think is that meridian line between, franchise starter and not franchise starter right now. Like, we saw what he did statistically this year, and it was fantastic for a while, but I'm just wondering what's going to happen without some of these weapons, like without Godwin. Evans a year older. The effort to get him that 1,000. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to fall on that line.
Man, we're not in the business of Mike Evans slander here, Matt Waldman. Fuck that. Stop that right now.
Look, what if I'm a Marcus Lattimore fan or Marshawn Lattimore fan?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then I might be in the business of Mike Evans slander.
To the last game and say you should be quiet for another year with your slander.
Did he get Andre Johnson like Cortland Finnegan did? Well, he did to Cortland Finnegan?
At least on the stat sheet he did, so we'll go with that.
All right.
Ryan Schottenheimer is as horrible a hire as Cowboys fans would like us to believe.
I'm going to say feel it. And I hate to agree with Cowboys fans who are overreactive about just about everything. But at the same time, I think that the track record that Schottenheimer has as being kind of an unimaginative coach, he's been around a lot of places. Has he had success in those places, college-wise?
But he's had good players.
Okay, he's had good players. But we can say that about a lot of coaches. So I'd say that he is an experienced hire, and they're counting on the experience to make some gains there. And now Mike McCarthy was an experienced hire, and now people are looking at McCarthy and saying he's not the problem, or at least they were for a while. We'll see what the fickle Cowboys fans feel like from 1 week to the next. But yeah, I'm going to agree with that. What are you going to say?
I'm going to say, I'm in agreement with something that has been put out there by many people on Twitter, and I totally agree with it. I can remember when Dan Campbell was viewed as like, oh, God, what are they doing here?
True.
Right? So the outcomes don't always match the expectations in both directions, right? Obviously, coaches get fired every year. They have fallen short of expectations. Other coaches step up and get the job done. So I'm not invested enough in the Cowboys. Can
I give you a real answer that I've been giving other people in private? Nobody fucking knows who's a good GM or who's really a good GM coach pairing for the most part when it's new guys or guys who haven't really proven themselves, because there's so many political dynamics with these guys and so many other dynamics that play into the success or failure of a team. And most people who are commenting on it never managed their way out of a paper bag, and don't even understand the dynamics that these guys even face and whether they can learn from mistakes and all of that. So this whole thing is a gigantic crapshoot.
So I've been soapboxing on this very podcast about the Campbell, Brad. Why am I missing his name?
Brad Holmes.
Brad Holmes.
Yeah.
I think the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell, the Nick Caserio, the D'Amico Ryans. I think these dynamic duos have come together. I don't know if anyone knew they were going to be dynamic or a duo when they came together, right? I mean, but that's never going to stop teams from trying to duplicate that.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see more of that. I mean, like, there's a reason all these young coaches or young offensive minds are all the rage right now is because some teams have had success with it. And pairing them with a young GM seems to be the path to success for some teams. So you're going to see every team try to do this, except Dallas. They don't give a fuck. They're going to do what Jerry Jones does.
Right. Our friend of the show, Dan Hatman, who's the head of the Scouting Academy, who places a lot of people into the NFL with his work. He does excellent work. He's former Giants and Eagles scout way back in the day. And Dan is a big very much in favor of GM coach combinations, that you hire them at the same time, because if you don't, you increase the risk that one's going to have political clout over the other, and there's going to be backbiting and blaming if you don't hire them at the same time and tell them you're going to have to be on the same boat. You're walking planks of the same lengths, and I'm not arming either of you with a saw. You know.
I think the Jets have tried to do this. We're going to talk about them for a second, but I think that you're going to see a lot of teams trying to replicate this, incoming head coach, pairing him with a GM. We'll see the Jaguars will work to that end as well. So it does make you know why they say the NFL is a copycat league? Because everybody copies everybody and tries to find that same path to success. And the truth is, it takes the right people.
Corporate America is a copycat league.
There you have it.
Yeah, same thing.
Listen to Matt Waldman. He knows these things. All right, then. Pete Carroll has something to offer as the Raiders head coach.
Yes, but I'm a Pete Carroll fan. Fuck everybody who isn't. I don't really care what you think. But no, seriously, like Pete, sure he does. Just because he's older? Come on now. I mean, he's been old for a while, right? So let's, he's
a very energetic.
He's an energetic, he's very energetic. He's someone who I think still can architect a good defense and be a part of that. I think he also can bring energy to a team, and it's a matter of being again on the same page with your GM. And things started to fall apart in Seattle because the quarterback, the GM, and the coach didn't seem to be on the same page from what we know.
Correct.
So if he can get on the same page and have a little bit of ruling time, he's going to make the Raiders competent. Or have a chance at competency. But again, it's a tough division. I mean, you look at this, you got Harbaugh, you got Reed, you've got Peyton. This is a very competitive division from that standpoint. And
all those other teams have quarterbacks, too.
All those other teams have quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard road. So, that being the case, a Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll reunion. Can you see it? Feel it or fuck it?
Yeah, I can see that. They've made amends in recent years.
Maybe the John Schneider portion of that three-legged race in Seattle was the guy on the outs of this one.
Maybe possible, and maybe Russell Wilson was a part of that problem too. Sure. Maybe Russell needed a little bit of humility and needed to add a little bit of that, because the way players talk about him, or
people who cover him closely,
cover him closely, and the way they talked about him, in the, when Marshawn Lynch talks about him, like, I don't have his number and here's why. And you realize the gist of why that was important to Marshawn Lynch and some of the other players. They recognized that he was a capable quarterback, but maybe he wasn't their favorite person as a teammate. And that's because they just didn't feel like he opened himself up to them and he kind of big-timed them. And I think maybe Russell Wilson has figured out that maybe he can't big-time people at this point, and maybe he's gotten a little bit of humility, and that could be helpful. So I think as a player, he can go up and get it balls to Brock Bowers. He can go up and get it balls to the Jacoby Myers. He can definitely go up and get it balls to whoever they bring in, either in free agency or in the draft. He gives you a chance, and I think that they're still the worst team in the AFC West. And they'll still likely be next year, but at least it gives you some stability at a position to where you can start building the team.
And as somebody who's within shouting distance of Pete Carroll, I'm rooting for you, old guy, said the other old guy. Aaron Glenn, the new coach of the New York Jets, would be wise to retain Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, he has told Jay Glazer yesterday that he intends to get this done sooner rather than later, that they're going to sort it out. Sounds like he'll make a trip to California, meet with him, perhaps with his new GM. Former Denver Broncos GM, our friend Cecil Lammy, has a pretty high opinion of Mookie, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Either way, young up-and-comer in the personnel ranks. Aaron Glenn would be wise to retain Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he would be. I think we talked about it last week in that we both feel like that Rodgers is, that he certainly reviled, but I feel like it's like a Russell Wilson situation. You have a bad team that could get a lot better, and you added Devontae Adams at midseason. Why aren't you going to let them play a full season together? You've got, him getting one season in with Garrett Wilson. Why don't you give him a second season now that the learning curve has been taken care of? I think that you've got to see this through, even if, people are reactive to Rodgers at this point and to what happened this year. Give them a full year together, because he didn't get that full year in 2023.
And you look at the alternatives, right? Who is your bridge quarterback? Is it Sam Darnold? Is it Kirk Cousins? You look at the list of free agent quarterbacks, it's not as appealing, any more appealing than, from what I'm told, the list of incoming rookies are. It just doesn't sound like this is a huge rookie quarterback year. You can disabuse me of that notion if you'd like, Matt. Certainly not on the level of last year. So
who would you like to see win a fight in a locker room, Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers? Like, can you imagine them both in the same locker room and Kirk Cousins trying to passive aggressively undermine Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers, like getting into a fight with him?
He just go on McAfee and destroy him.
Yeah, he probably would. That's true. But that's true. I don't know. I think I'd like to see a fight between those two guys.
Yeah. I don't know that we need to see that fight, but like, nobody likes old guys fighting. That's what I've heard. All right, so I think they'd be wise to retain him. That's it for this week. Matt, tell them again, lay out the contest one more time.
Yep.
Harris@footballguys is the email address.
Yep, and you email Bob and give your best nickname for Kirk Cousins, and Bob will pick out the best two, and you'll win an RSP.
The most creative use of the word noodle is probably going to be the winner. I'm just going to give you a hint.
Noodle brained? Okay,
no.
Wait, okay.
All right, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week with more of the same scintillating, exciting, interesting, intriguing, super cool stuff that we'll be feeling and fucking one or the other. Have a great day. Love you, Matt. Bye.
Love you. Bye.